Hello, I'm Eve Jackson in Paris. Coming up on today's show, Alan Rickman talks to France 24 about being Louis XIV in his Versailles set period piece about a pioneering 17th century gardener played by Kate Winslet. And French actor Vincent Cassel stars in Partisan as the leader of a cloistered cult whose children are trained to kill. Thanks for joining us. He plays Louis XIV in the French court of Versailles. She plays a pioneering gardener with a heaving bosom. Alan Rickman and Kate Winslet come together in a little chaos 20 years after they last starred alongside each other in Sense and Sensibility. Richelle Harrison Plesse has been speaking to Alan Rickman about his second turn in the director's seat.
The palace of Versailles shall be the heart of our kingdom, with gardens of exquisite and matchless beauty. Heaven shall be here.
Are you a believer in order?
Order?
Over landscape?
Well, I admire it.
This abundance of chaos. This is your Eden?
My search for it?
This was a story that seems to be believable and is absolutely a fantasy. It couldn't possibly have happened, or half of it couldn't. Kate Winslet's side of the story. And it's like any script you get. If you keep turning the pages, then there's something's happening. And if images start jumping around off the text, then I've learned that starts to mean that the directorial half of my brain is getting involved. And I certainly had no plan to play Louis XIV, but film finance is a tricky path to tread, and so it became a necessary economic factor.
What was it like to juggle both of these things at the same time?
It's stupid. You know, I don't know why I see actors doing this more and more. I really don't know how they do it, especially if they're in the whole film, because it's a very schizoid state of mind to put yourself into. I suppose it was made a little easier by the fact that Louis XIV doesn't actually move anywhere. He's a fixed point. That's in his nature. The essence of Louis XIV-ness is, I stay still, you come to me.
Your Majesty.
A light, honest scent. Some of the roses seem faded and overblown.
That fate awaits all roses, sire.
Walk with me.
You're also working with Kate Winslet once again after working with her in Ang Lee's Sense and Sensibility. Now, how was it to be reunited with her on a movie set 20 years later?
Well, wonderful, because, of course, you discover that 20 years has gone by for both of us, and a lot of water under a lot of bridges, but essentially still the same person, phenomenally prepared and phenomenally open and good fun. She's a gift to any director.
Audiences have seen you in many different roles. You've been a baddie in Robin Hood. You were a husband tempted to cheat in Love Actually. Even the President of the United States in The Butler. Now, how was it to play the King of France, the Sun King, perhaps one of the most well-known figures in French royalty?
At the end of the day, you're playing a human being, and that's what you have to try to get to the bottom of. And it's one of the qualities of Alison's writing, is that she writes a Louis XIV where you're aware of how solitary an existence that was. Yes, he was born into a lot of power, and yes, he knew how to hang on to it. But when I went to Versailles, the Louis XIV resident expert was telling us all sorts of the ins and outs, and one of which was that no matter which mistress or wife he was with at any one time, he always woke up alone, but always had, like 30 or 40 people watching him sleep, or standing there watching him eat his dinner, hoping for a crumb of conversation to be thrown at them. So I don't know what that does to the inside of somebody's head. So I was very taken by the scene between Kate and I where he
Divine.
talks about his wife in rather loving terms. So you have a selection of plants.
I had them unloaded into a little cart, intending to have them conveyed here, but there seems to be no one about.
I wish to be alone. I have them sent away.
If you wish to be alone, I could come back.
No, no, no. I find you're the very company I need today. Nothing would suit me better than, for me, the king's gardener, to take some advice on perennials.
So the movie is set in France, obviously, but you actually filmed in England. So how did you create 17th century France in the UK? What were the challenges, and why didn't you actually film at Versailles?
Well, we didn't film at Versailles because at the time of the film it was covered in scaffolding, because Louis moved all the lords in before it was finished. So that hence the scene where you have Le Nôtre walking through an unfinished Versailles with everybody still hammering and carving and building. So that was clearly never going to be able to do that in Versailles, and we couldn't even show an outside, obviously, covered in scaffolding.
Now, there's a scene at the beginning of the film, and your character, Louis XIV, announces plans for all the gardens, and he says, "Heaven shall be here." So what is Alan Rickman's idea of heaven?
Well, Versailles comes pretty close, but then what I enjoy very much is the idea of a writer who says, okay, well, here is heaven, but it's a very ordered one. And, you know, if as an actor I always feel that freedom and discipline are, in a way, the same word, then I think order and chaos have to be almost the same word. You can't have one without the other. So I really responded to the idea of a Versailles that's one of the most beautiful places on the planet, but in a tiny little corner of it, this woman couldn't have happened, impossible in history to have had a woman landscape gardener at the time, so the film's a fantasy, but she introduces this little piece of madness.
Although the elements may treat us cruelly, in the end, we have only our instincts. Patience, care, and a little warmth from the sun are our best hope.